But that didn't matter because Kali did feel the chakras. Kali nodded as he slipped his hand in the water. The water was cold, but he could feel the waves slowly touching his fingertips, tickling him, and he thought about it. About all the things Shukr had just told him. The water began to burn, and he realized the coldness was now inside him, and the water was now a part of him. The pain and pleasure began to topple him. His consciousness faded, and he opened his eyes to find himself alone on the boat. The water had turned completely black, and from then on the blood-red skies danced around him. It was just like the visions he had had, but this time he felt like he was in control of his visions, and just around him like magic he saw images made of tiny little lights forming into individuals and creatures. He saw the dragon standing over the water. He saw Hiranyashipu and Hiryaksha. He saw his father and his mother, and he saw his siblings. They were all made of lights, and they were all dancing over the water, shimmering under the red sky. He saw the other asuras, and then out of thin air he was in Patal. The boat came on the surface, and Kali saw that the island was smaller than Ilavarti. He could see tall iron buildings in the distance. The island was unlike any other he had ever seen, and it was all surreal. I want to see my past. And just like that he was pushed back. The images evaporated, coalescing to show Kali a forest. He saw a lanky tall man with long braided hair. His crown was tilted, and he was wearing a long robe. He had soldiers around him holding a bow and an arrow. He pointed it towards Kali, and Kali recognized him. He could recognize this man anywhere. In front of him stood King Parikshit. Kalki had almost forgotten about Shuko until he appeared in front of him. He flapped his wings and squawked at the snow as if it was something to eat. I never liked the cold. Kalki looked at the Vanas. They were repairing the ruptures in the barricades they had erected in Vanarvata. Lord Bajrang was instructing them. Ratna and Smrit were helping as much as they could. Where were you for so long? Kalki asked. It was still very awkward for him to be communicating with Shuko telepathically. Oh please, you didn't miss me, the parrot squawked. Kalki rolled his eyes. Shuko fluttered his wings and sat on Kalki's shoulder. He was quiet as he played with the snowflakes when a shadow appeared before him. He found Lord Bajrang towering over him. His golden ornaments glinted in the light. Are you sure they were Rakshas? Lord Bajrang asked. I've battled plenty of them, so yes, I am sure. Kalki sighed. Padma and Kripa had been abducted in front of his eyes. He was shaking in anger, but then Kalki was furious at Kripa for what he had done to his father. He wanted to bash his head for it. Padma had to be saved, but he would leave Kripa in Tal's camp. He can plunge to his death for all I care. We have a problem. My men say they saw some Manavs as well. Tal must have made a truce with the Manavs and the Rakshas. Lord Bajrang mumbled. Don't stress, we shall find them. How do you plan to do that? Kalki stood up irritated. He faced Lord Bajrang and said, you don't have enough men. Do you plan to grow in size and save the day? He was referring to a myth. It was believed that Lord Bajrang had once grown to the size of a mountain. Lord Bajrang remained calm. I know you are angry, but never forget that your tongue can be sharper than your sword when anger takes over it, and it can leave scars that one might not be able to heal. Kalki looked away annoyed, but he understood what Lord Bajrang was trying to say. But that doesn't mean I can grow tall, young boy. He let out a hearty laugh. We have a lot to do. The point is, do you want to help or sulk with your funny parrot? He winked at Shuko. He knows me, Shuko told Kalki. Kalki wondered how, but he didn't prod further. All right, I'm in. I am coming. Padma, you don't believe in our cause, do you? Lord Bajrang asked as he leaned forward, entering a dark pathway engulfed in snow and large glaciers. Kalki had no idea where Lord Bajrang was taking him. No, I don't see the point of the Vanas fighting each other at all. Vanas, by nature, are animalistic like most tribes. We had been gifted by Lord Shiva to Ilavarti to act as peacekeepers, guardians, helpers to the world, but none of the inhabitants of Ilavarti wanted our protection. We were peace-loving, so they thought we were weak. So the Vanas decided to live in seclusion until Lord Raghav and King Sugriva signed a pact with us. King Sugriva, he had been Lord Bajrang's ally. Some people even claimed that he had been like a brother to him. You made that pact happen? Lord Bajrang proudly nodded. They had now entered a strange rock-like structure and started ascending the uneven staircase. I thought living in seclusion would be for the best. What happened then? Lord Raghav left us, and so did King Sugriva. People say the endowed are blessed because they can live forever. I don't believe so. It is painful to see everyone you love perish in front of you. They had reached the top. Kalki slipped on the step, but Lord Bajrang grabbed his fist and pulled him up. Kalki grinned as he stood in front of the 7 rivers. The sight was truly magnificent. He had seen it earlier, but from a distance. Here the 7 rivers merged into each other. Wow, oh yeah, Bajrang grinned. I have heard that you stopped waging wars after the incident with Lord Raghav. Oh yes, I did. I have lived for a long time. I realized that wars, they might be good to solve a small conflict, but they have major repercussions later on, and that's what Tar doesn't understand. He thinks war is necessary to survive. He sighed. So here we are doing exactly what he wanted. Fighting war never solves anything. Kalki nodded. He remembered the corpses of the people of Shambhala. He had those people up to fight against the Rukti. That fight had led to the killing of the people he had loved. Oh Lakshmi, please forgive me. Do you think you'll be able to stop him? Lord Bajrang looked at Kalki for a moment and grinned. I can lift a mountain. What do you think? Did it really happen? Not really. He shrugged his shoulders. But I brought every herb on that mountain for brother Lakshman, who was quite ill and wounded. Lakshman was Lord Raghav's brother. What about you burning Dushasan's? Bajrang lifted his hand. You are a very curious child. Kalki laughed. Why are we? Lord Bajrang turned serious. Have you heard of the Eye of Brahma? I know a bit. The teachers at my Gurukul told me about it. Bajrang explained about the 4 shards, and then he said, I have the 2nd shard. Where is it? Right in front of you. Kalki was stunned. Wait, no. You? How is it you? The Eye of Brahma is made of chakras. One can dissolve those chakras and join it with his own chakra. There's a reason why I am considered invincible. I know what Tar is doing right now. Unfortunately, I was busy at the frontier and couldn't foresee the infiltration by the Rakshas. What is the history of the eye? Dushasan had given it to his advisor. The advisor ran away with it. Some say he was an asura and left for Patal. It then came into the hands of a good friend of mine. He had stolen it from someone giving me the 2nd shard. He had said that it was an important object that would serve me well. Your friend? Bajrang nodded. You might know him. He has a scar on his head. We weren't initially on good terms, but he was kind enough to give me the shard. Where does he live? Where you plan to go? Mahendragiri. Kalki looked at the mountains. Bhargav Ram was waiting for him there. Close your eyes, boy. There's something you need to see. Kalki hesitated a little but closed his eyes. Bajrang held his hand for a while. Nothing happened until Kalki realized his hand was burning. Soon he could feel his body moving like gel and withering away. He opened his eyes to find himself in the snow again. He was in a camp. Around him were large tents, roasted beefs, fires, varners in dark for combating each other. Some were having their supper, some were sleeping, and some were teasing the dancing apsaras. Lord Bajrang and Kalki stood in a corner and watched. Don't worry, Bajrang said, patting Kalki on the shoulder. No one can see us. This is unbelievable. Bajrang and Kalki walked around the tents. In the distance they could see a frozen river. Some of General Tar's men were looking at the barricades that Bajrang's men had put up on the other side of this river. Now they reached the largest tent of the camp, inside which stood a tall Vanar. His fur was as dark as coal. He had big eyes and a big mouth. The Vanar was pacing inside his tent. Worried Manavs and Rakshas surrounded him. The big dark-skinned Vanar spoke to another brown-skinned Vanar. Aruna, where are the captives? Should I bring them to you, General? Yes, he is General Tar. He looked devious. Soon Kalki saw Padma and Kripa come out from one of the tents looking haggard. Their faces and arms had bruises. Tar walked and stood close to Kripa, his thick bushy brows arching. What are Manavs doing in Bajrang's camp? Kripa didn't say anything. Tar flared his nostrils in anger. Who is the man who injured so many of my men? He was referring to Kalki. Kripa glared at Tar and then he smirked. Tar howled and punched his gut. We don't have time for this, Aruna. His right-hand man came forward in a hurry. Yes, my lord. What the hell am I supposed to do with an old man and a girl? Go find out something useful about what's going on in Bajrang's camp. Tar was being impractical again. Gently, Aruna reminded him that they had to battle with Bajrang's army in a few hours. It would be wise to let the men prepare for battle right now. Kalki's heart skipped a beat and he could feel Bajrang's heart leaping as well. Don't tell me what to do, you idiot. Tar sat down and looked at the people around him. He had a devious smile on his face. What are we waiting for? Let's attack now. What should we do about the prisoners? Asked Aruna. Tar turned around looking at the docile faces of Kripa and Padma. Rape her and kill him. What else? Kalki flared his nostrils. He moved to hit Tar, but Bajrang stopped him. He cannot see you and you cannot touch him. We should go back and prepare ourselves. Are we at war? Bajrang nodded. Unfortunately, yes. This won't end well. We'll have to constantly watch our backs. It had been announced to the public that Lord Kuvera, the king of Yakshs, had been killed by Lady Urvashi in self-defense. But the Yakshs suspected foul play. They were protesting. Some had even tried to assassinate Urvashi. She had created a mess and Arjun was trying to clean it up. But for Arjun, the worst was yet to come. How long will I have to guide this unpredictable, dangerous queen? queen? I only stayed because Rudra asked me to. We should leave. Arjun clasped Rudra's cheeks carefully, gazing at him. We are not safe here. Rudra shook his head. I know what she did was wrong, but I cannot let her be defeated by Ramras. Believe me, he's worse than her. Ramras was proving to be a bigger problem than Arjun had anticipated. He was a despicable man who drank and hoard, but his influence in the council had grown tremendously. He, like the other rich people, had been happy serving Kali, though Kali had tried to help his citizens. His reign had only seen the rich getting richer and the poor perishing even more. When Urvashi had taken the city, the nobles as well as the citizens had grown afraid, uncertain about how this little girl would rule their city. This fear had been fanned by Ramras, who never stopped reminding the ministers that she had murdered the king of Yakshas in broad daylight, and if we leave now we will be considered fugitives. We have pledged ourselves to the crown. There is no crown, there is just a whiny girl who does what she wants without thinking. In order to stop the protests and save her life, Urvashi had passed a law. Now it was illegal for Yaks to live in Indragarh. The Yaksh minister in the council, Gumukha, had voiced his outrage at this. There will be consequences to what you did. You shall be punished. The Yaksh shall retort, Gumukha shouted at the top of his voice, pointing his cane at Urvashi. Ramras patted him on his shoulder to calm him down. He then looked at Urvashi. Lady Urvashi, you shouldn't have done that. The Yakshs are creating problems in the city. He killed my father. He deserved it. You could have taken him to the court. Ramras protested. Why did you take the law in your own hands? I am the law and justice. I am your queen. Yes, you have the authority to do what you want. Ramras turned to leave. Until you are the queen, he added under his breath. Gumukha followed Ramras outside. Just as they were about to turn the corner, Ramras stopped. He looked at Urvashi and said, the Yakshs are a proud tribe and they feel slighted. We should discuss what is to be done about them in our next council meeting. I didn't mean to send them away. I have no qualms with the Yakshs as people. I had passed the law to stop the riots. If you promise me there won't be any riots, I'll withdraw it until the council votes for the ruler. With a pleasant smile, Ramras glanced at Gumukha. Gumukha didn't say anything but just nodded meekly. Arjun knew what Ramras had been hinting at. He will defeat Urvashi and bring back the Yakshs in the city. It was the day of the council meeting. Councilmen were going to decide who was fit to rule Indragarh. Urvashi, Arjun, and Rudra stepped inside the council chamber. There was a huge round table surrounded by wooden chairs occupied by the councilmen. Windows were lined on one side of the room, but the drapes had been closed. Manav guards had been stationed at the entrance. Gumukha sat at the back beside other Yaksh noblemen. He and Ramras were glancing at each other. Urvashi sat opposite Ramras. Let's begin. Lord Ramras can speak first. Ramras stood up. Rudra fidgeted nervously in his seat, but Arjun clasped his hand in his. They both smiled. I know you hate him, but you've got me now. Arjun whispered, many of you might not know me well. Unlike Lady Urvashi, I'm not royalty, but I plan to herald this place and its people into better, stronger times. I will set up more temples. Tax rate will be lowered. More gurukuls will be set up. Women will receive equal pay in the government, and I also plan to increase Indragarh's export and import business with other cities. And how do you plan to do that? A minister asked. I plan to change Agnigarh from a living settlement to a working area, and all the civilians will shift to Indragarh to tackle population control. Manavs shall be employed to build houses, and in my plan the Yaks headed by Gumukha will play a major role. In fact, as we speak, the son of Lord Kuvera, the heir of Alakpunal Kuvera, is on his way to Indragarh, and we shall have a treaty with him so we could use the Yaksh workforce. We all know that Tiavan Bialis are faster when it comes to menial jobs. Arjun remembered that Lord Kuvera had mentioned that his son was coming to Indragarh, though he hadn't anticipated that Ramras would have already gotten in touch with him. Ramras' speech is filled with empty promises, and if he is going to employ Manavs, why would the Yakshs play a key role? He is just doing this to please Gumukha. We have already talked to him. He has been kind enough to forgive us for his father's murder. I get it now. He plans to please the Yakshs by bringing Lord Kuvera's son in the city, but he wants me to be the king. If I am elected, he will come to us in peace. Urvashi coughed, and with a smile she asked, and what if I become the queen? What shall he do? Ramras sighed. He'll attack the city. Everyone gasped in horror. Urvashi looked bored, as if it didn't matter to her if the city was attacked. This is outrageous. Then we have no choice but to make you the king of face the wrath of the Yaksh prince. One of the councilmen said, "What is the point of this discussion if it has been decided already?" Everyone started shouting. "So there are people who believe Urvashi should rule." Ramras awkwardly sat back in his chair, and Urvashi stood up to speak. "We won't scamper, we are not cowards. If Nalkuvera wants war, we shall give him war." She directed his attention to Gumukha. "I might be a little young to rule, not the most favorable contender here, but I am royalty. I defeated Kali while the rich became richer. During his reign the poor were plagued by problems. He wasn't a perfect ruler, and I wouldn't be as well, but I know one thing, I have plans that could make this city great again." She paused, glancing at Arjun. "I really can. We shouldn't give in to Yaksh's threats. I will follow every rule that my father followed, and soon we will witness the golden age of Indragarh, our days of glory. But I won't run away from the Tiavanbialis. I lend my support to them, but if they don't cooperate, I shall not hesitate to cut them." "All the rules by Vedanta?" one minister said, nodding his head. "They were good." "Yes, all rules and regulations followed by my father shall be implemented except the tribal program. I have no issues with including them with us if they don't create any problems, and if they do, we'll deal with them. Then you let the prisoners out. There were many who had been thrown in because of sodomy. What will you do about that?" "Sodomy brings ugliness and unhealthiness to the society," a minister added. Arjun held his breath. "This is not happening." Urvashi sighed. "I know, and I agree. Those who practice sodomy shall be imprisoned." And Arjun's blood ran cold as he shared a worried glance with Rudra. The ministers, though, were satisfied in bringing back these conservative laws. Urvashi had officially won over all the noblemen and the ministers. "And if we select you," asked, "what would you do about Nalkuvera, who stands outside the city doors?" "I will extend a hand in friendship, and if he doesn't take it," Urvashi grinned, "I shall let him know then that every Yaksh that is there in this city shall be cut open till he surrenders, and I'll start with you." Lord Gumukha flabbergasted. Gumukha stood up from his seat. He was about to head towards Urvashi, but his fellow ministers stopped him. Unlike Kali, who had tried to keep the Tiavanbialis happy, Urvashi was keeping the Tiavanbialis in check, though not disqualifying them totally. Urvashi sat back and then looked at Arjun. Arjun hesitatingly gave her a thumbs up. The voting started as Urvashi bit her nails. Nervous Arjun and Rudra didn't want Urvashi to win. Urvashi came and stood beside Arjun. "How was it? You promised something about recapturing the prisoners," Rudra said. "Only a few of them. How does it matter? But they helped you. And now I'll have the guards of the crown to help me, the army on my side. The prisoners were a temporary solution, but do not worry, you two won't be going anywhere since both of you are my think tank." She winked and then seated herself comfortably on her chair. Rudra and Arjun clasped their hands in each other's. The spokesperson had completed counting the paper stations given by each member of the council. He stood at the pedestal to announce the results. Arjun was trying to study his expression. Both Ramras and Urvashi were inexperienced rulers, but at least Ramras won't put Arjun and Rudra in prison going by the result. "Don't be Urvashi, don't be Urvashi." Arjun's eyes were shut, and he could feel the sweat in his palms, the hair at the back of his neck standing up. "The new ruler of Indragarh, the capital of Udayas, the sole power of Kikatpur, is Queen Urvashi, the youngest queen in the history of this country." And with that, Arjun could picture his doom. Damn, Kali had just traveled back in time, or at least his consciousness had. He was standing in the midst of the jungle with King Parikshit aiming an arrow at him before a guard stepped up to him and told him to put it down. "He's just a boy," the guard said. "But I've grown." Kali turned and realized that King Parikshit and his guards weren't looking at him. In fact, they didn't even know the older Kali was standing there. Instead, he saw his younger version on the ground clutching his small cherub-faced sister, Durukti. He felt goosebumps. It was eerie watching himself, fair-skinned with golden eyes and long wavy hair. "But he is an asura. Look at his eyes," commented Parikshit. "They should be burned down. They spread curses." Kali realized this was the time when asuras were said to be a stinking, horrifying race who were despicable to look at. They were being pulled and pushed down, killed and beheaded for being who they were. Kali recalled how it had all started after the breaking. Rumors about the asuras had started spreading. People said that asuras had caused the breaking through their magic. Obviously, Kali knew that asuras didn't dabble in magic extensively, not more so than Vidyadhras, but people had chosen to believe the rumors. As a result, asuras in Ilavarti had been taken down, raped and murdered. It didn't matter to Manavs what what their gender or age was, and then the killing stopped for a while. When Parikshit became king, he was a benevolent king, heir to the throne of Udayas. He had controlled the northern cities from Indragarh. Fine, Parikshit nodded. Make use of him. Somehow the guard nodded. He was a young man and looked fierce, though recognizable. Kali looked at the guard as he helped the younger Kali and Drupadi up and took them back to the kingdom. Kali realized why he was recognizable. He didn't have the grey beard he had now, but was young and captivating. He was none other than Koko. Earlier, the majority of the provinces in north were ruled by Parikshit. In the Kuru kingdom, the country had not been divided like the present time. The scene changed. The present scene dissolved, and Kali was standing in the street. Parikshit was walking in front of Kali with his guards. Younger Kali stood beside him. He was carrying a sword and a shield. Kali remembered how he used to be Parikshit's squire, his aide. Parikshit would ask Kali to do menial jobs. Along with Parikshit stood his son Dharmayoddha, a teenager. Parikshit was showing him around the city. The people were nodding at Parikshit, bowing to him, and then out of nowhere an assassin appeared with a sword to attack Parikshit. Before Koko could do anything, younger Kali jumped in front, deflecting the attack from the Naga assassin, and then stabbed him. Parikshit looked at his aide and was surprised. Their relations with the Nagas had turned sour. It was not the first time that an assassination attempt had been made at the king. Kali remembered how this was one of his proudest moments since he had saved the king.